And so the very first thing that you meet this month with is gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, saying alhamdulillah, He gave you another opportunity to live to see this blessed month, to be a part of it, to make du'as where other people cannot make du'a anymore, to partake in acts of worship that others are no longer able to partake in. وَلَئِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. And if you are grateful, I will increase you. And so the very first thing is alhamdulillah for the blessing of Ramadan, because it is a blessing whether we feel joy or not. It is an incredible blessing that not everyone gets to have and that we should not take for granted. Another opportunity to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then how do I connect it to the moment that I have right now? And many people are saying this Ramadan doesn't feel the same. And what I don't want to happen is that you waste your Ramadan because of your sadness, and you take it for granted and say, you know, this Ramadan is different. Maybe the next Ramadan, things will be different and I'll feel better and I can apply myself in worship. Rather, everything that is happening should be a reason for you to have the best Ramadan of your life. It should actually be the reason for the Ramadan in which you are closest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than any Ramadan prior. Why? When you read about the secrets of fasting and what Ramadan is meant to unveil in our hearts, beyond simply causing us to want to fast from our food and our drink, beyond simply disconnecting us from our desires, it is also meant to connect us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to the hereafter and to the reward of the hereafter that He promises the righteous believer in a way that nothing else can. And for many Ramadans prior, you spend the beginning of Ramadan peeling the layers, deeper perception, trying to perceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, trying to perceive the hereafter, trying to perceive the reward of the hereafter, trying to perceive the pain and the suffering of your brothers and sisters. And you know what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us all a head start. You have a head start bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. You need no one to tell you about the appetite that you have for this world being out of control. When the Prophet ﷺ saw Israfil alayhi salam with his lips puckered to the horn, he said, Kayfa an'um? Kayfa an'um? What appetite do I have for this world after I saw that blow of death? And so if you've lost your appetite for this world after seeing what is happening in Gaza, you've gotten a head start on Ramadan. Because Ramadan is meant to diminish your appetite for this world, not just your appetite for food and drink. You've gotten a head start in Ramadan. And if you watch those videos that are coming out of Gaza and you feel the pain as if someone is striking you to where you physically can't sleep, all of those ahadith about the fever of the body when any part of it is struck, if it physically makes you sick, if you don't enjoy your food after seeing people that are shredded, like the meat that we eat, then you've gotten a head start on your Ramadan. There's something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was breaking you off from. And even beyond that, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has pushed you to worship Him at a greater level, pushed you to qiyam, maybe you didn't used to make dua so sincerely. Maybe you started to pray qiyam some nights and make dua for your brothers and sisters. Allah gave you a head start on Ramadan. And there are three things that the ulama mention in terms of the depth of perception that should happen in Ramadan, and they all relate to this particular moment that we are in right now, and why this Ramadan has to be different, but not in the way that other people are talking about it being different. It has to be different in a good way. Number one, that you perceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your personal worship of Him to the point that it is as if you can see Him. It is as if you can see Him. أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه. That you worship Allah as if you can see Him. You see, كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. Fasting is prescribed on you so you can become God conscious. But eventually that God consciousness starts to transcend all of the worldly things that are in front of you and all of the barriers that are between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to where you are at such harmony. I'm not preaching with God in the divine sense, not a divine presence, but oneness in the sense that it is as if you can see Him through everything. that this entire reality around you feels like an illusion, and He is the only reality when you enter into your salah and you enter into your acts of worship. It's the depth of your perception, that you perceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through everything. And the reading of the Quran, and the removal of the food and the drink, and the removal of the sins that come with that heightened elevation of consciousness are meant to bring you to that place where you perceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through all of the barriers of what He has created. The second thing is that as it relates to your brothers and sisters, that you perceive them حَتَّى يُحِبُّ لِأَخِيهِ مَا يُحِبُّ لِنَفْسِهِ, until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. What does it mean? يُحِبُّ لِأَخِيهِ مَا يُحِبُّ لِنَفْسِهِ, that you love for your brother what you love for yourself. That you see yourself in your brother. That you remove all of the barriers between you and your brother and sister to the point that you don't just see a shared humanity, but you actually see an inevitable existence. You are me. That person in Gaza is me. That's my child. That's my mother. That's my brother. That's my sister. That is me. And so subhanAllah, when it comes to transcendence with the relationship with the divine, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you worship Allah as if you can see Him, because you can't be Him. But when it comes to transcendence with your brothers and sisters, to the point that you become them, because they are living, breathing creatures who say La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah just like you. And so it is to the point that my priorities dissolve into their priorities, that their existence becomes my existence, that what they are seeing becomes what I am seeing, that the pain that they are feeling becomes the pain that I have, and therefore my output in regards to them is like the output that I would hope in regards to me if I was in that exact same situation. And so transcending the dunya with your perception of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if you can see Him, transcending the dunya with your brothers and sisters as if you are them, and transcending the material worth of this world in pursuit of the greater reward of the hereafter.